corridor in wall panel C suddenly has its doors vanish, trapping explorers inside. Elian Cross is already inside wall panel C's vanishing corridor, doors that never return when the building stops behaving like a place. Her badge says Building Inspector, but the badge reader returns it warm from the slot. No alarm sounds. No ceiling tile falls. The first wrong thing is only a red reflection on wet tile, where no red light exists. That is why she keeps looking. Inside room 404, Elian Cross finds a wet footprint under the janitor's sink. Fluorescent light humming over wet tile makes every breath feel borrowed. Then the service door opens after the handle has already stopped moving, and Elian Cross understands this is not a bad map. The badge reader logs an entry from the other side of the wall, which means the room has started writing ahead of her. Elian does the small human thing first. She checks whether her own hands are shaking. The pattern is ugly because it is gentle. No door locks until she trusts it. The corridor outside loses the vending machine she used as a landmark. She chooses the next door because standing still has become a way of answering. She reaches the elevator lobby and stops at a bent call button with a fresh thumbprint. Red corridor light sliding across the chrome doors sticks to her skin before the room moves. Before she can step back, the elevator arrives from below a floor the building never had. The panel prints her destination before she touches anything, and the timestamp is not the frightening part. She presses her thumb into the object and leaves a mark that should make the scene less perfect. The elevator doors turn distance into permission, and the permission keeps getting removed. The lobby doors close in the wrong order behind her, and the loss is too quiet to mourn. The only honest direction left is the one the building has not had time to flatter. Past the next blind turn, the service corridor gives her a looping camera frame on a dead monitor. Cool wall panel air against her palm turns the air thick enough to notice. The second proof arrives when the hallway inside the camera is longer than the hallway outside it. The archive labels the clip as tomorrow's maintenance check, but the entry is filed under completed work. Training tells her to move toward light, but the light keeps behaving like bait. The rooms are not rearranging at random because the corridor keeps receipts. The real corridor shortens while the recorded one keeps growing, turning the last useful memory into rumor. She moves before the room can make the sensible option look kind. The blank route kiosk looks harmless until she notices a dead keycard balanced on the map ledge. Warm plastic smell rising from the blank panel gives the silence a surface. Nothing jumps at her. Instead, the floor plan erases the path behind her one room at a time. The map keeps the exit label but removes every line leading to it, leaving her with evidence nobody outside would accept. She talks once just to hear a voice in the room, and the ceiling gives the sound back thinner. Every safe surface stays safe long enough to teach her the wrong habit. The word outside remains on the blank panel after the route disappears, so her route shrinks without a single slammed door. Her next step is not brave, only stubborn, and that is enough to disturb the pattern. At the maintenance stair, the first proof is a sealed door, seam dusted with white plaster. Dry grit under the handrail gathers behind her ears after the lights settle. The room gives no warning before the stairwell returns to the lobby without ever turning. The safety placard names a landing between two numbered floors, as if the building prefers paperwork to teeth. A practical person would call emergency services. She already has, and the phone showed her the call before she made it. The building edits after the choice, never before it, like it wants consent on record. Her footsteps arrive ahead of her on the next flight, and she feels the building remove one small argument for hope. The corridor ahead opens with the softness of someone trying not to wake a child. She enters the negative floor with one hand on the wall and sees a maintenance tag tied to a pipe with black string. Air cold enough to sting the inside of her nose follows her like dust caught in a projector beam. She is still reading the wall placard when the floor numbers count backward after the lights blink. The tag lists a repair date that has not happened yet, and her name sits in the line where the exit should be. She counts doors because counting is what people do when belief gets too expensive. Each correction leaves the route cleaner, simpler, and less human. The stairwell door seals itself with her shadow still on it, which is how the place punishes certainty. She follows the least helpful sound because every helpful marker light has betrayed her. Beyond the locked threshold, the staff break room is waiting with a paper cup still warm beside an empty chair. Coffee steam moving in a square pattern stays present even when the room goes still. The ordinary explanation breaks apart because the room keeps objects from earlier versions of itself. The roster shows her name crossed out in 3 different inks, so the mistake has learned how to look official. For a moment she hates herself for noticing details, because each detail notices her back. The room does not slam a door or shake a wall, it waits because waiting is quieter. The chair scrape repeats after every other sound has stopped, leaving only the part of the room she has not chosen yet. The wall beside her palm warms, and she pulls away before it can learn the pressure of her hand. The route deposits her in the camera archive, facing a red timestamp burned into a paused image. Archive static moving across the glass like dust with teeth crawls over the nearest glass and refuses to leave. For one clean second, she thinks she has misread it, but the recording shows tomorrow's door before tonight's wall exists. The file names her last turn before she decides to take it, even though the device is not connected to power. She keeps one shoulder near the wall, not for safety, but to prove the wall remains where it was. The trap's favorite disguise is usefulness, and every useful thing points inward. The archive fan spins down, but the tape keeps breathing, and the new silence feels freshly installed. Another threshold appears in plain view, too clean and too patient to be trusted. What should be an ordinary corner of the loading bay holds a black rubber doorstop placed in the center of the floor. Rain smell with no outside air to carry it reaches her before the next door does. The place waits for her attention, and only then the exit pushes itself farther away each time she names it. The delivery manifest lists one package as occupant, and the clean formatting makes it worse. The bravest thing available is embarrassingly small. She keeps walking without pretending she is calm. Maps fail loudly, this map fails with perfect manners. The painted arrows on the concrete rotate toward her shoes, making the next step look voluntary. She walks toward the worst lit corner because it has not lied yet. She almost misses a cracked visitor badge, spelling her name wrong when the security desk brightens. Green monitor light on the phone receiver carries no comfort, only proof that the place is awake. A trap would rush, this one waits until the desk phone rings with the sound of her own breathing. The call log says she answered before the first ring, which turns the desk into a witness. She pockets the badge, then takes it out again when it grows warm against her ribs. The impossible waits in the corridor's patience, not in the corridor's size. The receiver leaves a warm mark on her hand after she drops it, proof that the room can touch her without touching her skin. The route changes behind her, but this time she does not turn around to reward it. Under the ceiling vent in the copy room, a stack of floor plans, still warm from the printer, sits too neatly. Ozone and toner powder under the ceiling vent makes the ordinary furniture look staged. The building keeps its voice low while each copy shows a different place for the same exit. The newest sheet includes her handprint already on the glass, then spits out a second copy with warmer ink. Her mouth tastes of metal, and she realizes she has been holding her breath since the previous room. A maze moves walls, this room turns decisions into walls. The paper tray fills with routes she has not walked yet, then the paper curls as if the machine is tired. The machine clicks once, approving nothing, and she leaves before it can print a reason. The South Office pool greets her with a desk lamp facing a blank partition, and no sound from outside. Dust motes turning inside a cone of yellow light bends the quiet into a pressure she can feel. There is no scream, no collapse, only the fact that the cubicle aisles swap positions whenever she looks down. A voicemail transcribes the sentence she is afraid to say, forcing the room to confess in office language. She tells herself the route must connect somewhere, then refuses to say the word exit again. The exit does not vanish. It waits until she names it, then becomes somewhere else. The open plan room becomes a maze without adding a wall, and open space becomes another kind of wall. She crosses the room diagonally, breaking the path the building seems to prefer. By the time she reaches the mail room, an envelope addressed to the next version of her is already in the open. Damp paper sticking to the sorting shelf clings to the object as if it was placed by wet hands. She tests the nearest handle, and in answer the postmark changes every time she reads it aloud. The return address is the building's street number written backward, and the old paper bends toward her hand. She lets the silence run for 5 slow breaths before deciding the room is listening for decisions. The floor plan is not describing space anymore, it is negotiating with her expectation. The slot marked outgoing begins to breathe cold air, so the mail slot suddenly feels like a mouth. The envelope stays closed in her pocket, heavy as a second heartbeat. The next door opens into the roof access landing, where a red fire axe sealed behind clean glass waits at floor level. Wind pressing on a door that opens indoors rises from the floor, low and patient. The safe choice curdles as soon as the roof door shows a corridor reflection instead of sky. The evacuation diagram calls the roof an interior space, but the letters are too steady to be a glitch. Her shoes squeak on the floor, and the sound comes back from farther away than the walls allow. Every contradiction arrives with a door, a map, or a light she can touch. The stairwell below fills with ceiling light from above, and the ceiling light above her feet seems to come from nowhere. She opens the indoor roof door with both hands, already angry at the sky it will not show. She follows the wall into the conference room and finds a long table set with one plastic cup. Cold condensation running down the cup without dripping makes the handle colder than the wall around it. The floor seems to hold its breath until the room has no corners when seen through the glass. The meeting minutes describe silence as an attendee, naming the absence like a scheduled scent. She thinks about quitting, then remembers there is no supervisor outside this building anymore. The wrong rooms wait like maintained rooms, polished and ready for inspection. Every chair turns a few degrees toward the door, slow enough that she can count the movement. The cup sweats on the table after she passes it, like the room is nervous. The building lets her into the parking level only after showing a car alarm, remote blinking under a tire. Oil rainbow shining on still concrete keeps moving after every visible thing has stopped. By now she knows to watch the small things, so she sees when the painted exit ramp climbs back into the building. The payment machine charges her for hours she has not spent, and the machine accepts the impossible as payment. The fear becomes useful when it stops being a fog and turns into a list of things she can touch. Every open door keeps leading her deeper, so survival starts looking suspicious. The air tastes like exhaust from a vehicle that is not there, and the false outside leaves a taste behind. She steps around the painted arrow instead of following it. A softer light fills the mirrored lobby, and a brass directory listing one extra floor becomes the only honest thing there. Polished stone cold through the soles of her shoes presses down until the room seems smaller. The mirrored surface proves the lie before her reflection reaches the doors half a second late. The directory gives her role as missing occupant as politely as any directory in any lobby. She looks away from the reflection because courage sometimes means refusing the room an audience. The reflection is late because the building is testing which version of her leaves first, and the reflection keeps walking after she stops, which is worse than any locked door. The mirror gives her a delayed nod, and she refuses to nod back. Near the end of the loop, the lost property office returns with her own jacket hanging from a hook she has never seen. Old fabric smell trapped in a room with no vents returns first, ahead of the door, ahead of the light. The loop becomes undeniable when the pockets contain dust from rooms she has not entered. The claim ticket lists her signature in a careful older hand, and for the first time the word closed feels hungry. She does not run. Running has become another kind of instruction. By the time the first room returns, the rule opens like a Klein wound. The hook keeps swinging after she takes the jacket down, and the first room finally looks finished. She reaches for the extra handle because the building expects fear, not ensue LT. She reaches the server closet after the route refuses to stay behind. And a humming rack with one cable tied around itself waits in plain view. Warm plastic air pressing against her throat makes the room feel recently used. The ordinary explanation ends when the network lights blink in the rhythm of her footsteps. The access log shows a successful login from her badge after it left her hand, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian wipes her hand on her uniform and hates that the gesture still feels normal. From there, the building is not chasing her now, it is editing the habits she relies on. The corridor camera outside loses the last 10 seconds of her face, and the loss removes one practical choice. She leaves before the room can turn hesitation into another doorway. By contrast, she reaches stairwell landing 19 after the route refuses to stay behind, and a safety cone folded flat against the wall waits in plain view. Rubber dust and cold paint under emergency light makes the room feel recently used. The ordinary explanation ends when the landing number changes only when she looks away. The inspection sticker certifies a stair that does not connect to any floor, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian says the room number under her breath, then stops because the room seems to prefer names. Every helpful detail arrives with a price tag she can feel before she understands it. The railing ends one step before her hand expects it, leaving her with less room to pretend this is confusion. She moves on because the room has started treating patients as permission. Under pressure, she reaches the unmarked restroom after the route refuses to stay behind, and a mirror taped over with clear plastic waits in plain view. Bleach water cooling around the drain makes the room feel recently used. Past midnight, the ordinary explanation ends when the stalls reflect in the plastic, although the room has no mirror left. The cleaning checklist marks every box complete in her handwriting, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian checks her pulse against her wrist before deciding the sound is not proof. The trap keeps choosing office language because office language makes surrender sound routine. One sink keeps running without filling the basin, so the route becomes smaller without looking smaller. She chooses the uglier path because it has not tried to comfort her yet. Across the margin, she reaches the training room after the route refuses to stay behind. And a plastic chair facing a blank projection wall panel waits in plain view. Dry marker dust resting on the table edge makes the room feel recently used. Nearer the source, the ordinary explanation ends when the projector shows the hallway she will enter next. The attendance sheet has one empty line labeled instructor, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian almost smiles at the neatness of it, and the smile never quite arrives. The place punishes the second glance more than the first mistake. The chair legs scrape backward when she refuses to sit, and the building gains another detail it should not own. She steps away from the cleanest answer and follows the mark that looks accidental. Behind that, she reaches the freight elevator cage after the route refuses to stay behind. And a pallet jack parked across the open gate waits in plain view. Cold chain grease marking the floor makes the room feel recently used. Quietly, the ordinary explanation ends when the elevator descends while the cage stays level with the hallway. The scale readout counts one extra person inside, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian keeps her eyes on one corner because looking everywhere has become useless. Nothing here needs to be loud when the paperwork can move the wall for it. The gate closes around empty air and dents inward. Making the next ordinary object harder to true scent, she keeps walking because stopping has become one more way to cooperate. She reaches the windowless courtyard after the route refuses to stay behind, and a square of rainwater lying under fake skylight waits in plain view. Damp concrete smell rising with no wind makes the room feel recently used. The ordinary explanation ends when the rain falls upward whenever she steps near the center. The maintenance plan labels the courtyard an interior corridor, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian makes herself count to 4 before touching anything else. The building saves its cruelty for practical choices. The only open door fills with brick while she watches, while the room stays polite enough to feel deliberate. She refuses the obvious door and feels the building notice. She reaches the first aid station after the route refuses to stay behind, and a sealed bandage wrapper already torn at one corner waits in plain view. Alcohol wipe sharpness hanging in the small room makes the room feel recently used. The ordinary explanation ends when the cabinet unlocks before she admits her hand is bleeding. The injury form describes the cut before she looks at it, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian thinks about calling for help, then remembers help would need a direction. The ordinary objects are no longer clues, they are handles the place can pull. The blood on her finger dries into the shape of a tiny floor plan, and her memory has to choose which version to keep. She takes the turn before she can rehearse a better reason. She reaches room 404 after the route refuses to stay behind, and the original footprint, now dry at the edges, waits in plain view. The same fluorescent hum lowered by one note makes the room feel recently used. The ordinary explanation ends when the room returns with an extra handle on the inside. The door log writes closed while the door is open, making the impossible look official in a new way. Elian lets anger do the work fear cannot do cleanly. The safest route is always the one that has just learned her. The first mark waits beside a second one shaped like her shoe, which makes stillness feel like consent. She lets the previous room close without watching it prove a point. Near the end, Elian Cross returns to room 404 without walking there. The red reflection is gone. The wet footprint is dry at the heel and fresh at the